into the brain. I think there's been a rape up there.
Seedy little men, seedy little jokes.
You're a cop. But women are dirty. And I'm boring myself talking about it.
What's the most important thing in your podcast?
Hosts
That's right, the listener.
coming at it from a different angle.
And here's what you're doing to your podcast listening figures if you forget the value of listener care.
Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of the Wernham Blogg podcast, the podcast dedicated to discussing and reviewing the UK edition of The Office. Who's with me? Oh, don't you know? He's romantic and thrifty. It's Jack.
Say what you see, James.
And he's not leaving here because he's got a job for life. It's Danny.
Right, something like this one day.
Okay. And the pretty girl on the hood of a Cadillac is Seth.
Go get the guitar.
You're saying that, you're looking at a picture of Seth, you sound a bit gay.
Well, it's not gay, because he's here doing the intro with us. So we're here to discuss the fourth episode in the show, and I think this is probably, I'd say, renowned as one of the best episodes in the show, if not the best.
Well, the quotes group that we're a part of, that we run, it won the tournament to find out the listeners' favourites, the quotes' favourite episode.
Can I say, it didn't just win it, it absolutely smashed the back doors in on all the other episodes. Like, literally every time.
It was a complete shutout, yeah.
Every time this episode went up against anything else, even quiz, it just decimated it. Like, we're talking 95% of the people that voted preferred.
It was a landslide.
Genuinely was.
You don't need that when you've got that percentage of the people voting as the greatest episode.
That's true.
Well, I remember, by the way, we're talking about the training episode. Did
I not say that?
I don't know. If anyone doesn't know.
Training.
The fourth episode, if you don't know that, you can
Episode 4, training.
Get out.
Yes.
If you don't know the fourth episode, get out.
Yeah, you're all still here. Good.
But I remember when it was on TV, you could tell there was just something special about this episode. It was literally just hilarious. It was just from straight away from watching it for the first time, you just knew that this was going to be like a classic, quotable, in the echelons of just sitcom episodes. Yeah.
I remember personally, I'd watched the first two episodes, and then I'd been on holiday, and I'd missed the quiz one, and then I picked this one up, and I just knew this was the episode where I knew I was going to love this program till my dying day.
Yeah, it's just funny, isn't it? It's just pure comedy, and it's just great.
I think it's a real standalone piece as well. You know, if I was to show someone The Office to kind of get them into it, I think rather than show them the first episode, I'd probably show them this one because it doesn't need much context. It's just, as you say, it's just funny. There's not tons of exposition. It's the Brent show, really.
Oh no, definitely.
The Robin show.
It's a great gateway episode for people who aren't quite sure about it.
And the cool thing about it is, it's a Brent-centric episode, obviously, but also we've suddenly been allowed to see a different side to Brent after the quiz episode. So actually now, suddenly we've got this newfound empathy for Brent, whereas we didn't have that in the first couple. If this episode had come as episode 3 after the first two, we would have probably a different view of Brent, and we probably wouldn't give him the artistic license, if you will, to prat around with his guitar and doing all the whole shtick and stuff.
And Tim as well, if we hadn't had that, as we said in episode 3, that existential crisis from Tim, this episode really builds to Tim, making a climactic decision at the end, which the quiz episode and what he goes through in the quiz episode really kind of builds into that.
Yeah, this is the final straw, isn't it? Of all of his shit that he's put up with, like listening to Gareth talking about bones and God knows what, this is it for Tim.
Actually, I said that there wasn't much exposition in this episode, but actually, in terms of Tim and Dawn and Lee, there's tons, and it's a really crucial episode.
But that's the genius of the writing, in that Gervais and Merchant they really wring every potential of comedy out of this office training situation that they write about. But it's basically they just find the comedy in it, and then around that they put in these the character arcs and the character moments, and it just fits perfectly. So it's just literally it's just pure comedy all the way through.
Yeah.
You're right, it fits perfectly.
I don't know, how do you find these quotes just out of thin air?
Yeah.
Honestly, he just pulls them out of thin air, doesn't he? I mean, it's mental.
That's what we got.
It's a real talent.
Quotes
it's a gift as much as a training.
But the analysis comes naturally as well.
I remember I was going through Berkhamsted once on the bus, and I saw Danny out the window, and he was walking down the road, and he was laughing to himself. And I said to my friend who didn't know Danny, I said, "There's my mate out there. I bet you he's thinking about The Office right now."
And I was.
And I asked him later, and he went, "Yeah, I was." Yeah.
And I remember the day, and I told you the exact scene that was going through my head at the time.
The exact scene and everything.
It was the motivational speech.
I remember.
That's one of the most common ones to go through my head.
I remember when we used to go swimming, Danny, and I used to. He was literally these swimming lengths with his laughing to himself as his head is under the water, literally laughing his ass off.
Because The Office is just
Thinking
on
about
in
The
my head.
Office.
That's definitely not normal.
Else to do. It just runs the office.
Definitely
not there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, is anybody else like that? I mean, I don't know if this is maybe worth asking or whether we want to open this can of worms. But if anybody's listening that literally replays the episodes in their head and laughs to themselves, then I mean that would reassure us a bit about Danny at least.
Well, I'm sure we'll get people saying that we do, because the show kind of lends itself to that. It's so quotable, especially this episode. This episode has got so many of the classic quotes, the classic office quotes. The show is so quotable, and because it is, the whole show is based in the mundane reality of life. Those quotes are applicable to any situation. It's not like the Mighty Boosh or something where it's got funny quotes, but you can't really. You have to really.
They're too obscure, aren't they?
You have to really shoehorn in quotes in the Mighty Boosh, if you want to get them into conversation. In the office, and they're not even out of context. They're not even necessarily funny quotes. Like if Danny was to quote The Office at his work, some people wouldn't. It's not like you go, "Oh, that's a great joke."
Well,
I bet people would be like,
he says
what?
it is.
Yeah, I was going to say.
If it doesn't happen.
Okay, by the way, so we've had a few episodes out now. So as we sit here today, we've had 3 episodes that have gone live, and feedback has been amazing. So we've actually had a few people come feedback to actually give us some advice. Yeah. So, open to that.
Slagging us off.
Well, in a way.
What have they ever done?
Always open to that.
Yeah.
Nothing, so don't...
Well, one of the...
Once you get into the top 10 of iTunes, you've got the sort of...
I should just clarify it. The top 10 of iTunes TV and films. So
In
it's
the
a little
UK.
bit niche.
Okay, yes, specifically.
But, I mean...
Top 10
that's all right.
for BBC sitcoms made between 1998 and 2012.
For 2 episodes in at the time, which is what it was.
Yeah, I'm well happy with that.
It's good, but yeah, we need more people to keep listening. So, tell your friends.
Yeah.
Empty seats aren't laughing very much.
Extras, unorthodox.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, to be fair, he's right. It is all down to you guys for listening. So this is now me talking to the audience, which we don't normally do. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, everybody. It's been really, really well received, and we're actually blown away by how many people have listened.
Yeah.
But we're egomaniacs, so it's not quite enough. So we need you to keep listening, keep downloading, keep subscribing. As Danny said, tell your friends, and hopefully help us climb up those charts and get back into top 10 again.
At the end of the day, 6 million people watch the Christmas specials, so where's the other 599,900?
Where are they?
Yeah.
They've made profit.
599,000. Well, I can't even work it out. What was it? 5,999,000. Where are you?
The last place you want someone like that is in accounts.
Yeah.
That's your job, then.
That's an in-joke. Danny's actually an accountant. So
I was desperately trying to run through in
That's
my
your
head
job.
what quote would be applicable to the bullshit
assistant-
Danny's saying.
Assistant to the accountant.
So anyway, well, the point is, some of the feedback we've had has been really useful. Actually, someone suggested that we actually go through a bit of a synopsis of the episode before we start, just to give everybody a heads up on what they're in for, as if they don't already know.
Yeah, they know.
So, where is this one from? We're about to read.
This is the official recap of or description of episode 4 training from series 1 of The Office.
Okay, and here it is. It's from IMDb, and it says, to fend off the increasing staff disillusionment, a training day has been scheduled. Dodge's engagement to Lee is on the rocks, and Tim begins to think that he may have a last chance with her.
He may at last have a chance with her.
Oh yeah, he may. I mean, I don't need to read how they go.
Quite important difference in nuance there.
Yeah,
It's certainly not his last chance.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Let me say that
may
again.
at last have a chance with
All
her.
right. Well, do I need to repeat, or can we just leave all this in?
Yeah, no, leave that in. It's good.
All right.
Interesting Freudian slip actually by you.
Well, in a way.
Yeah.
Is it his last chance?
So just to be clear, yeah. Well, they know already. I don't know why we were even reading this. It's a fucking stupid.
Well,
whose idea was this?
We got told.
Anyway,
Someone told us to do
But
it.
if they haven't seen the
This wasn't
episode,
our
they wouldn't be
idea.
listening, would they?
Well, yeah, that's true. But maybe I guess some people do listen, did watch it, and then think, "Oh, I like The Office." I mean, not everyone's as huge a fan. We can't
Yeah, but why
we
would
can't
they
be
listen-
just expecting Office encyclopedia.
Well,
listeners.
to be honest, if you haven't listened to The Office already, then I don't want you to listen. To be honest, I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Get out.
You've long since turned off anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
who are
exactly.
we talking to?
Fuck it, we'll leave that in. That'll be all right.
Leave that in.
You got on with it, yeah?
Right.
So it's a really different opener to this episode, because obviously it opens on Lee and Dawn having an argument, and until now we've seen bits of Lee and obviously lots of Dawn, but we've never seen them sort of conflict. I think the closest we came is when Dawn had a little giggle at Lee's plans for the future, when he was talking about going and popping out some kids.
It's quite interesting, this scene as well, because we do literally just jump in, and it's the Office equivalent, I guess, of jumping in, opening the episode in the middle of an action scene. It's about an action package. I think the theme tune is very, very slightly still carrying on underneath it for like half a second. When we just jump straight in, we're in the middle of this middle of this argument, we don't know what's going on, we don't know what it's about, we never really find out what it's about.
No.
But yeah, it kind of just throws us straight in there, and it is actually, it might seem like a small thing, but it's quite jarring actually, isn't it?
It is, because it's real. It doesn't come across as sort of a staged argument. It's because obviously Lucy Davis is very, very good at sort of being hurt, I think, on camera.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So she does a really good job of being put into a, I don't know, just backed into a corner and not being able to like speak her mind with Lee.
But the 3 previous episodes have been they've been quite slow build through the episode, and they kind of start quite quietly. Think about episode 3, the quiz, where it starts and it's just the empty office and it's Tim just sitting there on his own. So to be thrown in the middle of this kind of like dialogue heavy argument is quite different.
And it's such a contrast, isn't it, to the way that she is with Tim.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I can't even picture them having an argument, her and Tim.
No, but that is it. I have thought about that, and like especially after where they left off in the Christmas specials, I have thought, I wonder if they will have arguments. I mean, of course they will.
Yeah, of course.
Couples argue, but yeah, it'll be interesting to think about what it would be about.
So that's one of the reasons I love British sitcoms that leave you wanting more. Do you know what I mean? Because if it was an American version, even in the American version, thinking about it, you see their house, you see their kids, you literally see their whole life pan out. Whereas with this, it leaves you absolutely warm.
Yeah,
and I think that's why it's been enduring enough for people like us to come and make a podcast about it, because it's left us guessing for years.
Yeah.
You know exactly what it's given us little clues, and it's made us expand upon them. You know, and I think that's part of his enduring legacy that it hasn't revealed too much about all these characters.
Yeah. Fingers crossed that Ricky Gervais doesn't make a film or something.
Yeah.
And spoil it.
That would be rubbish. That would be rubbish.
Well, at least it was only, David Brent in that, not all the other characters as well.
No, that's true. I was thinking about that. Do you think there was ever a temptation to bring sort of like Big Keith or approach like Mike?
I don't think they would have been allowed to.
I think if he'd been allowed, he would have.
I've been trying to research it, but there's not really much information on the internet. But wondering how much Merchant knew about life on the road before it was on, whether he would have made any money off it, because I mean Brent is presumably as much his character as Gervais is.
Well, yeah.
Or maybe technically Brent does count as a purely Gervais character, so he didn't have to ask Merchant.
When I saw Stephen Merchant being interviewed about just general stuff, and he was asked about the Office film as it was put to him, and he was very clear to point out that this is not an Office film. This is
so then the question is whether or not he would have. Whether he needed to legally be informed about it, and whether he could have shut it down. If he was like, no, Brent's 50% my character, so I'm saying no to this.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I don't know.
In many ways, this episode is the root of that film because of obviously foregone conclusion.
Yeah, no, it's really
ripping off the popularity of this.
Yeah, that's true. So much,
and he talks about the band days. He talks about 10 years ago when he was in the band.
Yeah. In fact, some of the music is probably copyrighted as well to The Office. I'm guessing. I don't know how that works.
But I know. But I mean, Gervais is a musical guy, so I imagine the music.
Yeah, so
lyrics mainly.
But this is where
I imagine the music is all Gervais. So
it's up and then it's straight back down again because obviously we've got this funny talking head from Gareth, and then instantly we've got Dawn unpacking chairs or setting up chairs for the meeting while Brent's doing his conversation with Rowan about how he's, as you say, he's trained in it, but he was good at it before he was trained in it, so now that he's trained in it, he's better than people that are just trained.
He says, I know that line. He says, it sums up Brent. This line, he says, it's a gift and a training.
That's it. Yeah,
it was a gift, but it's also something I've been trained in, but it's a gift that precedes the training.
Yeah, but luckily I had the gift before, so I'm better than you.
Yeah.
And he introduces Rowan.
It's that one-upmanship.
Yeah, exactly. There's just endless throughout this episode as well.
Yeah,
that one-upmanship.
And he introduces Rowan, doesn't let him get a word in edgeways.
So
doesn't even acknowledge Dawn, because I think is Dawn crying in
That's
the background.
Right. Yeah,
Dawn runs out crying.
Yeah.
It doesn't acknowledge that.
And not only is he ignoring her and not acknowledging her, but the spiel that he's just done is about how if you're upset, come and clean our floor. Do you know what I mean? We'll clean our floor together. That's it. Yeah.
But it's all performative. That's the thing. That's what it is,
exactly.
Isn't it? And that's kind of what it really is nailed on in this episode. Like it's all performative. But yeah, so we have the very quickly second scene. We have the crux of the episode introduced to us, which is this training day. We almost know straight away that this is going to be a different kind of episode. This is going to be like an insular kind of standalone episode where we're going to get this training day.
And you see Keith recording a message, don't you, saying I will be at training all day.
That is the scene we talked about, and that is the scene we talked about before about Ricky and Steve weren't planning much for Ewan McIntosh. They heard him do this piece to camera about recording his answering machine, and it was Scotch eggs from there on in.
bloody repeat anecdotes. I didn't listen to the first 3 episodes. They never heard it.
Well, you haven't listened to the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, bloody have. But okay, at the time of that, I've listened to episodes 1 and 2. I still haven't listened to episode 3.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Admits it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I recorded it. So,
Now he's the plonker.
You know, I recorded it.
It's all up here, isn't it?
I have listened to it in a way.
Yeah, he's laughing at it when he's swimming.
But no, it's interesting to know these behind the scenes anecdotes, so you can track, like, if you know that that's where Ewan McIntosh was kind of almost discovered by accident by Gervais and Merchant, who up to then thought he was kind of just like a background actor to just come in and be in the background. Yeah. If you know that that's the point where they were like, actually, we can give this guy more to do, it's quite fascinating to see where his character would go from there. And
it actually makes that line so much better as well. When listening, knowing that and watching it back, it makes me appreciate that line so much more.
That was a career-making line reading for Ewan. Yeah.
Hello, you're through to Keith. I will be at training all day today. Please call me or leave a message, and I will call you tomorrow.
Before the training day begins properly, we go back to the Dawn subplot, which kind of will run through the episode as well. Yeah. And Tim, bless him, is doing his best to make her feel better, and it's working.
And he's doing a really good job. He's doing a really good job. But at the same time, he's basically bearing his soul for her a little bit. He's actually saying some of the things that he would never be able to say in British, like, I don't know, just in general polite society. He would never say some of this stuff to Dawn, but obviously he feels that he can because of the situation.
And to be
it's a whole window of opportunity for Tim, this whole episode with Dawn, I think. He reveals the true extent of his affections, and he's allowed to do that through this argument. Yeah.
He does.
It's interesting.
But to be fair to him, he's not sneaky. He does say, in this conversation with Dawn, he does say, you and Lee, you're going to be together, something like that.
He knows that.
Yeah. Lee's going to be with you, he knows that. Like, he's not trying to plant seeds to break them up. He's just being a genuinely comforting shoulder to cry on for a friend, for an upset friend.
Shoulder to cry.
Soldier to cry.
But you know that secretly he's hoping that,
I mean, obviously we know that, but
he's pretty heavy with what he says. He says, "I'll marry you then," or "I'll marry your snot." So it's pretty.
And the thing is, she reciprocates that. Do you know what I mean? She says, "Oh, I'm snotty," and she says how sweet he is, and it's. And the worst part is, even when you're watching it fresh, you know that it's probably going to get snatched away from him.
But actually, at this point, episode 4, we don't know that it's going to be snatched away from him. You could be forgiven for sitting there, judging by the whole history of sitcoms in the past. Friends, everything else.
True.
Cheers with Sam and Diane. You could be forgiven for thinking, as soon as now that Lee and Dawn are broken up, all he's got to do is tell her how he feels, and it'll all be fine. Once as soon as he says to her, asks her out. It'll all be fine and they'll be together. You could be forgiven for thinking that, but
all she has to do is end her miserable relationship with Lee and go out with Tim as quickly as possible.
Is that a quote?
What the fuck is that? No! He means it's from the
Peter Purvis.
God! That was a deep cut.
Can I just say though, to be fair, I love The Office, and I didn't get that from a mile away. If anybody
we were all just so confused.
Can I just say, if anybody got that before us, please can you message us or something, because we need to get you with Danny. We need to get you two together. That was mental.
All she had to do was acknowledge the customer's presence and end her personal call as quickly as possible.
Tim's doing a really good job of consoling Dawn. She's genuinely feeling better until Gareth rocks up and tells her that Monkey Allen fancies her even if no one else does.
It's that even if no one else does.
Yeah,
that's what did.
Exactly, and she just instantly, and again, she's not over the top with it, as we talked about in the first episode.
Yeah.
She's not big, she's not big. She just literally head down, eyes covered,
walks off.
It's really quite nicely done, but obviously she's still really upset and Gareth's fucked it all up.
In fact, do we ever actually get to meet Monkey Allen?
No.
I know, because that fat woman on the Christmas special,
she's looking for Monkey Allen.
She's looking for Monkey Allen.
Is she? Oh yeah, of course she is.
And he goes after him, going, "Oh, Monkey Allen." We never actually get to see Monkey Allen.
I was reading something online, or was it in a discussion with you guys, where there's been a bit of debate about who is Monkey Allen. Some people are like, "Oh,
maybe. Is he just one of the warehouse guys?"
I know which one Monkey Allen is. There's some debate about which one he actually is and whether we've seen him or not.
What we could do? How about this? Go on, sir.
Gareth says he's a little fella.
All right, listen. What I'm
That's
going to do?
Anton. That's Anton.
I'm going to get.
No, Gareth does say
I'm going to
No,
scour.
he says Monkey Alan, little fella.
Yeah, he does.
They've got
yeah,
Monkey Alan and Anton. They're both little.
All right, audience participation here. What we're going to do is I'm going to get a picture and I'm going to cut stills from every person in the warehouse I can find, Christmas parties and all, and we have to try and guess or vote on who's Monkey Alan.
And it's not.
So we'll do the Who is
You
Monkey
will-
Alan?
Yeah, the Who's Monkey Alan challenge.
Fantastic.
You will never win.
Yeah.
It'll still be fun though.
So as part of the introduction to Rowan, David says, we're bringing him in here because I like to do this, and today's session is all about. And then Rowan cuts in and says, "Oh, maybe I should do that." And this bit's really telling because David says, "Well, it's my thing." Like, as if literally the cameras are just there for him. He forgets that actually it's a documentary about The Office, and it's quite a telling moment, I think, in that particular bit there.
Yeah, that's where the competition starts, I guess. This kind of little internal competition in David's head, but you don't even really realise it is a competition until, like you said earlier, Seth, at the end, you suddenly realise that in his head it's been a little competition all along.
So we've
And Rowan's not even reciprocating that competition. Rowan's just trying to do his job.
Well, because he doesn't know Dave, he doesn't know Brent, does he? I mean,
Yeah.
he's obviously met him that morning.
Yeah.
He doesn't know Brent, so he doesn't realise how much of just an idiot and an arsehole he's going to be, and how much he's going to completely break him over the day.
If he knew Brent, he probably wouldn't be there doing the job. To be fair.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Have you guys seen in the thick of it?
Yeah.
Yes, he's in the thick of it.
He is, but I like, again, just like how we had the In-Betweeners crossover, this is also in the universe of the thick of it for me. So what's happened is Rowan has got so frustrated with Brent, he's given up the training game and he's gone to work for the Shadow Cabinet.
He's not working for Joe Brent, he's working for the Shadow Cabinet.
What's his name in that?
I just
Stuart.
say the guy who
Stuart,
plays
something.
Brian, do we have his name? I thought his performance was brilliant. I thought his facial expressions were up there with Tim's.
he
some of the
is
best.
great in this, and this is what I wanted to mention.
Vincent
because
Franklin.
Yeah, he was in.
Vincent Franklin.
He was in a gay thing a few years ago.
Cucumber.
Playing up to Cucumber. Playing a really uptight middle-aged gay guy.
Which-
There you go.
Yeah, so there
But,
you go.
yeah, because I have seen him in other things. Like I think I forgot he was in the thick of it. But I've seen him in like Doctors and stuff. And he's a perfectly good actor. But there's nothing that I've seen him in before that would indicate that he could do this really, really realistic portrayal. Like, I mean, usually, like I've said before, when compared to The Office, most things you see, you can tell they're acting. But you can just see the kind of the actorly instincts coming out. And obviously, it's something to do with Gervais and Merchant's directing, I guess, that gets these naturalistic performances. But a lot of the actors don't ever manage to do again. Get these naturalistic performances out of him.
I mean, to me, that's his job now. He's still doing it now, going around offices doing that training. He's not an actor. He's just a guy. That does
Well,
training.
exactly. He's Rowan, isn't he? He's Rowan.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it really is. It's an ensemble piece, The Office, and I don't know if it's luck or serendipity or the direction of Gervais and Merchant, but there's not one weak character or weak performance in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's quite something, really. That's quite something.
Yeah, there literally
There's
isn't
not a weak performance.
Yeah, there literally isn't any bad performance, and there isn't any performances that take you out of it, and you think, oh god, yeah, that person was missed.
Yeah.
No, it's true. It's
Where you
true.
think that person
That did
missed
quite
twice,
a bit,
and that took me out of it because that line, you can tell it's an actor saying lines. It's so naturalistic, and the fact that it's not improvised either. It's not like the thick of it where a lot of it is improvised. In the Office, as far as I know, it's quite strictly scripted.
Yeah, we talked about that before. I think it definitely is. I think they play around with it. Well, I think Ricky Gervais plays around with it sometimes, but I think, as you said, they know they want to get from A to B in every scene.
Yeah.
It is scripted definitely in that respect.
Yeah. But I think maybe we've all seen those behind the scenes footage from The Office and like the bloopers and stuff, and you can just see what a relaxed atmosphere that Gervais and Merchant must have created on the set.
More
laid back, more fun.
Just drop that quote at the same time.
I got that
I'm
first.
proud of both of you. So everybody's walked down the boring hallway. They've gone into the boring room, and now they're about to be shown the boring video. So
the video, it may be boring, but it's utterly hilarious.
well, yeah.
This is for me, this video is one of the funniest bits of The Office.
Yeah, well, clearly. You were quoting it earlier.
Yeah.
But these are, this is what the videos were like. Obviously, this is Ricky and Steve having a bit of a jibe at those types of videos, because they've obviously been in sessions, as we all have, like this. I mean, I say that. Have you guys been in a session like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and you see these kind of
I
things,
have,
like
yes.
when I did Christmas temping at HMV when I was younger, you get shown these little kind of these staff training videos first. Yeah, so I know exactly the kind of thing. But yeah, they were spoofing. But yeah, and it's so like you could be forgiven for thinking it's real.
It is,
I did. When I first watched it,
yeah.
I thought it was just a
I
old 80s video that he dug out. But Peter Purvis made it special as a present for Ricky Gervais.
Is that true?
Yes.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's good. I didn't know
He
that.
did,
I
yeah.
genuinely thought it might have been an old one,
No,
but
no.
I thought they maybe just got the
I mean,
worst
it's
one
very
they could find.
similar to those. those videos you get shown at school, and it kind of, the whole episode gives me that same feeling of like a school day where you use a different classroom or something.
Yeah, no one's taking
like a
it
different
seriously.
teacher for the
And,
day.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. When you
And
walk
someone
into
wheels
that,
in a TV on a trolley.
or you
know?
walk into your classroom and there's a TV and you're like, yes,
Yeah.
this is it. Here we go.
Oh, TV day. Yeah.
But the thing is,
yeah.
that's not what any of the staff are thinking. Do you know what I mean? Because they're grown-ups. They're probably thinking, do you know what? I've got fucking loads of work to do, and I'm going to be sat in here all day watching my boss prat around with it. Because they probably know that this is not going to David's not going to let this guy have it. Do you know what I mean? Especially Malcolm. He's probably thinking, oh, here we go. I've been in these sessions before.
Well, I was thinking this because as much as clearly through the episode, Brent gives Rowan loads of grief and completely breaks him by the end of the episode. It's not like the other employees are giving Rowan loads of respect. They're not coming back from lunch when they're supposed to.
Yeah.
They're goading Brent on because they can see that this is kind of like he's going to be funny. You know, they're listening to him play his music. They're singing along to it. So it's not like they're helping Rowan at all.
Well, that's the thing. When you were at school, even if you didn't have a TV in the room, if you had a teacher that you know could be easily like distracted,
Yeah, exactly,
Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? You ask the question, you say, "Oh, how's your son doing in Australia?" And then suddenly that's the lesson gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can just start.
No, I don't think any member of staff in there really cares about the training day, apart from one guy. I don't know who he is, but he seems to be wanting to take it up as a new career.
Oh, that young guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's talking to he's talking to Rowan, going, "Yeah, it's good this, yeah." And he said, "Oh, what are you thinking of doing this?"
Yeah.
That just shows how desperate the times are in Wernham Blogg. You know, he just wants anything just to get out, like any port in a storm.
Well, maybe he's thinking about redundancies and he's thinking about what he can do next.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, could be. Good point.
Yeah, but will he still want to do it after the day of watching Rowan struggle?
Well,
Yeah.
Or is that kind of against
Well,
his own David Brent?
he's already seen Rowan struggle part.
Yeah,
He
it's
says, "Oh, yeah,
just
it's
coming back
been
off lunch,
quite
isn't it?
fun."
So
So,
yeah, he's already seen these. Yeah, so he's already seen these 3 scenes that we're about to talk about, which is a series of like 3 scenes. But like I said before, really just wring as much comedy as it can do out of the concept of the training day idea. Gervais and Merchant obviously thought, right, let's do one aping an office training day. Let's just create a list of all the bullshit you have to go through then, and let's just take the piss out of it one by one. And they do. We got the video, we've got the role play, and we've got the ultimate fantasy.
The keywords, those cliche things like the chicken, the bag of grain, and the fox trying to come.
The team building,
Yeah, as if that's team building. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
And and it's so relatable. Like everyone, either at school or in an office,
Everyone
or
knows
in an
that
interview.
answer.
Yeah, everyone.
Everybody.
No, but and also everyone's been through all of these things. But and especially the video.
On the subject of the video, Brent can't help, but he just can't help himself. He butts in.
In fact, a postage stamp is legal tender. A bus driver would have to accept that.
And to be honest, who honestly, after watching it, went onto the internet and Googled, "Can you use stamps as legal tender?"
I think I might have done too.
I've genuinely never forgotten that fact. Yeah, but I've never been man enough to
Not
man
enough.
enough.
Man enough.
to try and.
If you're not man enough to use your stamps, Jack, I will do it for you.
Why don't we put it out there to the group? Anyone listening who's part of our group, if they've ever had an experience with stamps relating to this particular point of the episode, have they ever tried to use a stamp?
Who's that? What?
Who's that guy? That teacher who sends us the videos doing the quotes of David
yeah.
Brent?
Hang
What's
on,
his
I'll
name?
find
We got to
his
give
name.
him a call.
Keep talking.
Jamie.
Yeah. No,
Is that his name?
It's something like that.
Oh, but he's in Norway now, so I think he's teaching in Norway.
Hang
isn't he?
on.
But he would be the perfect person to film himself going in like a
Yeah, he
jackass
would.
stuff.
All right, hang on. Keep
trying
talking.
to
Keep talking.
use his stamps to buy something and then filming it and then posting it up to the Wernham Blogg Facebook page to see if it.
Yeah, or you could
what happened.
trade him in at the post office.
Yeah, so James Phillip, Micklebust, Hampshire.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to read it out. James Phillip Micklebust, Hampshire is an absolutely brilliant impressionist of David Brent. He's got long hair, but honestly, his facial micro expressions are absolutely spot on.
He does the facial expressions better than any.
Anyway, what were you going to ask him to do? Were you going to get? Oh yeah, that's right.
But he's in Norway, so I don't think he can do it.
Does it work in Norway?
I don't know. Works in Norway. Does it work in Norway? I doubt. Why are we looking at Danny?
Danny, you're supposed to know these things.
And Danny was actually thinking, I don't know actually.
Do you reckon it'll work in Norway?
I very much doubt it.
All right, whatever. Could someone do a video?
Yeah, someone, please.
Boring, isn't it? What torturous this. Can someone do a video of trying to buy something with stamps, preferably on a bus, failing that on a taxi, failing that
just in a corner shop.
in a corner shop.
Post it to the Wernham Blogg Facebook page. We want to see it.
Josh Waddy, you can do it.
He's our man.
Think of all the
We know that
pleasure.
he's been waiting in on Friday nights for the new episode.
Yeah, exactly.
to drop.
Think of all the pleasure
So,
we've given you over the last 3 weeks. Do us a favour.
Yeah.
Do us a favour.
Yeah.
Shut him up, will you?
See you Tuesday.
See, I wonder, do you think that Jennifer and the head office sent Rowan?
I think that, I don't.
Or do you think David arranged it?
I don't think something with Brent.
Why would he?
He does all his own in-house training. Remember, in Series 2, when Cooper and Webb come in, at first he thinks that they're trying to get his business, and he's not interested at all, is he? So I don't think on that basis, I don't think he would have arranged it.
No, he makes a point then, doesn't he? He's saying I do all my own in-house training.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Which is obviously just his ego talking as usual. No, I do everything myself. I can do all of this. I could be famous. I could be touring in a band if I want, but I'm here, and
Yeah.
So he almost, maybe from the beginning, Rowan is an imposition to him. He's like, oh, it's been sent by Jennifer. Perhaps that's what's going on a little bit.
Well, this idea that Brent might see him as an imposition is kind of like really, you haven't thinking about it now, thinking about that extra layer. But the bit where they do the role play really has like an added thing to it, where Brent is almost deliberately trying to sabotage him.
Well, that's the brilliant thing.
Yeah.
The role play is actually the next scene. So this is brilliant because every time you do one of these training sessions, there's inevitably the role play, and there's inevitably some people in the office or the scenario that just for some reason take it really seriously. And
But also, almost everyone dreads it. Most people wouldn't want to get up and act in front of
9 out of 10 people think, what a waste of time.
Yeah,
he said to himself, the dreaded role play.
Yeah, no one wants to do it. Brent thinks he's going to thrive in it, though.
He can't believe his luck. You know what I mean? Genuinely, someone's asking
it's
him
a
to do
chance for Brent
performance.
to show what he thinks everyone should know, that he could be famous if he wants. He could be an actor, he could be a musician, he could be...
It's his chance to do a comedy sketch. He's going to be the fastest. It's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, he's good.
Someone's literally asking him to do a performance now. Do you know what I mean? This is as good as it gets. So obviously he gets up there, and the suggestion from Rowan is that he's going to do a hotel manager who just doesn't care, and obviously this is the way not to do it. And Brent instantly wants to play the hotel manager because he sees shades of Basil Fawlty in that role. And he says, "No, it's okay. I can handle it, David. You can do your role." And it's just improvisation. And David can't think of a complaint, so he goes to Rowan. What's the complaint about?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So he can't even think.
After all that build up, I'm like, oh no, let me do it. I'm the better.
I'll bring something to this role.
I'll bring something to it. He then
and then he covers that up, doesn't he? But there is no right or wrong.
Exactly. And that's so good. I mean, we come on to that, I'm sure, but the interplay between those two is absolutely solid gold. I know we talked about how good Ricky Gervais is, and obviously this touches on how good Vincent Franklin clearly is to work with him on this. But there's another scene a bit later when they're, I mean, people think we talk over each other in our podcast, but man alive, they are just rattling it off one after the other, and everything Brent says, like a couple of beats later, Rowan's reacting to what Brent said.
It doesn't matter whether you may not be the person that apparently
trust is returned in leadership.
It's important that you know your place and that you're that you are supported by.
Okay.
Maybe we should. Maybe we should just move on at this stage to another exercise.
But this role play scene then obviously has the legendary. This is what it's all been building up to for me. The legendary, the groundbreaking line that everyone remembers. No one can forget it, and it's gone into the cultural lexicon now. Everyone knows this line, even if you've never watched The Office.
You'll know what we're talking about.
The classic.
I think there's been a rape up there.
And there's just stunned face from Rowan as well, and everybody else. And I think the wonderful is Gareth makes a note as well.
But honestly, I think that is literally the pinpoint moment where Office becomes a stone cold classic.
Do you know what?
There's pre-rape and there's post-rape. We're now living in a post-rape world, everyone.
Right. No, you're right. Absolutely. And I think if you were to do like a line graph of literally the best moments of The Office, so we talked about this episode being a peak. That's the peak of this episode.
That's it.
That moment you just heard, ladies and gentlemen, is literally the highest point on the highest episode on the highest sitcom.
I think
British
that
history.
is literally that. I mean, not that the peak takes a huge plummet, but that's the peak of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Episode 4, Series 1. I think there's been a rape up there.
And the thing is,
full of peaks and troughs.
But it's followed by this wonderful pregnant pause where obviously it's just absolute shock horror, and then David's an equally brilliant line is get their attention, as if that's what he was trying to do. Because I mean, the only reason he said it, lest we forget, is because actually he was flustered by Rowan. Because actually Rowan's doing quite a good job of being a bad hotel manager. And as soon as he says, "I'd like to make a complaint, please," I don't care. There's this sort of double take with Brent where he's like, "Well, hang on a minute. Are we going now?"
And he's flustered as well because
he has to pull something out of the bag. shut Rowan
Yeah.
up.
And
Always got his shot.
he obviously didn't think that Rowan had it in him to kind of like
Yeah,
improv
exactly.
like that. Yeah, he's
Bulldog
completely
kid.
thrown him. Yeah.
I phased you, but you have a go. See if you can phase me, okay?
And the
Try
fact
to
that
fall.
Brent there says you try and phase me shows just how much of a competition.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not.
That's
That's what it is. Yeah, he sees it as like, right, we're trying to phase it. We're
Yeah.
trying to trick each other. We're trying to phase
Yeah,
each
yeah.
other. Yeah, which is completely it's
not
just
what they're
ridiculous,
doing.
isn't it? It's such a telling line.
He's
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
lost
yeah.
in the whole in the fun of it, isn't he? He doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, with that, there is no 362 in this hotel. He's led them down a path which is completely going off what Rowan's got written down in his little box.
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
got to tick off. So
Yeah.
then Brent's got to make
And he
up.
knows that.
Brent's got to make up his own lesson for why he said it.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. And these lessons that he makes up, they're just like ramblings.
It's just nonsense.
Masquerading as professorial statements. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just
yeah.
literally just talks and talks and
He's
talks and talks.
deliberately hijacking the whole thing.
Yeah.
The guitar thing's not planned, but he definitely wants to hijack it. 100%.
But then, and then completing this kind of like triptych of little scenes to establish the training day, we've got this the ultimate fantasy scene, which is
Yeah.
brilliant.
Gareth comes in. He's been sent off to get a flip chart or something. Gareth, ultimate fantasy.
2 lesbians, probably. Sisters. I'm just watching.
But that's such a good gag,
It's
though,
just
isn't it?
it's brilliant. I every time I see it, I laugh. And then Tim gives it the perfect button where he's asked for his ultimate fantasy, and he goes, I never thought I'd say this, but can I hear more from Gareth?
Yeah, and Gareth's got this little look to him, like
Yeah. And I was thinking about that when I watched it earlier today. Yeah, like you almost get the impression that he's actually going to tell her more about it.
bit fruity.
Yeah. But what I thought was telling about that, actually, as well as it being like a funny punchline to the scene, is that you don't hear Tim's ultimate fantasy. So, but I
She's
mean,
just walked it back in, hasn't she?
well, that, or it kind of indicates that he probably, I mean, he's deflecting it with humour like Tim does, but maybe he doesn't have an ultimate fantasy. Like that might make him have to think seriously about actually what do I want.
That's true. He
What do I want from life? Like what would I say if I was asked?
Which is what he's thinking in this episode, because I think Tim's existential crisis carries on through this episode very much so. Right? In fact,
it blows up in about 10 minutes.
It blows up
at this point in spectacular fashion.
Yeah. But yeah,
maybe it's telling, as you say, that he didn't want to answer that question because he's really pondering that, not ultimate fantasy, but merely what is the purpose of my life? Why am I here? What am I doing?
Well, exactly. Yeah,
Really
I think he would be too. Yeah, I mean, he'd either be too embarrassed to say because he'd think it was out of his reach, or he wouldn't. Maybe he's never even thought about it. Really, he's a bit of like we said before. He's not a hero. He is a bit of a kind of like a lazy, like unmotivated guy. So he deflects it with humour. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
Well, he finds things to busy himself. One of which is winding up Gareth, and Gareth is almost a shield for having to acknowledge this. In a way, and using Gareth in that way is also part of that.
And then
there's a beautiful scene with Tim in this episode where actually it's where I was talking about that guy saying, "Oh, I wouldn't mind doing this as a career," and then the camera pans to Tim and he's just standing there looking out the window.
Yeah,
you can see he's really lost in thought about the whole thing.
And there's
so is the assumption there when Dawn comes back in? Tim's assumption then is that they've split up, right?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
I think it was. I think
that's what I would think.
I think everyone thinks they've split up. Yeah, because
that's the point where Tim then thinks they've split up when she comes back in crying because it's like the second row, right? It's like part 2, sort of. Or am I wrong here? I don't know.
No. That is during that.
He parks it. He parks the thought until later in the episode, though, and by the time he leaves it, basically, now's his moment, this second, but he doesn't take it.
Yeah, that's right, because there is another moment, isn't there, when they're in the hallway again.
Yeah, but he doesn't see that. He doesn't see that.
But to be fair, I think that it's
not a chance.
If he said like minutes after Dawn's broken up with Lee and she's clearly crying, if he'd gone, so shall we go out? Do you want to be my girlfriend? That might have been a bit of an inappropriate time to ask.
Yeah, no,
that wouldn't have worked.
No,
work with the toe.
Yeah,
but it's interesting when we're talking about how Dawn's called out of the room by Lee in this scene, and it's that kind of allows us to then we get Dawn's very first talking head. Finally, 4 episodes in, we actually get a bit of a one-on-one talking head with Dawn.
See, I wonder if actually we were never meant to have a talking head from Dawn. I mean, obviously, in the reality of the show. So in the sense that the BBC are doing a documentary on these guys, mainly the main character is David Brent, but actually Dawn, they never maybe considered a main character.
But
actually, they've got some drama here. So actually, maybe they thought, you know what, that receptionist girl, let's have a conversation with her and see what she's got to say. And it's not particularly telling. Talking head, I wouldn't have thought. It's about.
No, she's just cynical about her relationship. Yeah. If this talking head was obviously recorded either before the day began or after the day ended.
It trivialises the argument if it was in the middle,
it wouldn't. She wouldn't have done this kind of clear-headed, almost kind of sarcastic talking head while she was going through this tumultuous time during the day with Lee. But yeah, it's interesting to think about because I always, since we've been doing this and I realised how late on in the series we actually see Dawn's first talking head, I have been wondering why did Merchant and Gervais wait so long to do it? But maybe they were thinking I
think Danny said it the other day. It's the first time she's really relevant, isn't it? In this, so I guess we get many more from her though. I can't think of many.
We do in series 2. We see a pop up occasionally.
Do we get any more in this series?
Well, there's the one where she talks about her friend Week's chalk. That's what I was thinking. I think she just. I might maybe I'm misremembering it. It'll be interesting to watch it now with this in mind. But I think from here on, she just gets as many talking heads as everyone else. But maybe she doesn't. I don't know. Because it's not like she's been sidelined as a character. I mean, it's not like it's kind of a sexism in the workplace or anything. But Gervais and Merchant just weren't interested in her as a character.
Yeah.
Not interested in making a shitload out of all the other characters.
So we're back in the room and we're all in a big circle and we're going around the circle and Keith is talking about his motivation to work here because motivation is a key word today. I mean, these fucking training sessions where you have keywords. So obviously the funny thing about this is obviously Keith is just basically he's got no frills. He just basically says it exactly like it is. It's a stopgap. I mean, who would say that to their boss? Like in the boss in the room, it's a stopgap, pretty brainless. I don't take my work home with me. And obviously David's utterly offended by this.
Yeah.
But it's all about trust, though, isn't it? We were told earlier that this event, there's trust exercise. It's about opening up to the group. So obviously Keith thought I can say it.
He doesn't care anyway because
he doesn't care.
When you talk about redundancies, she goes, "Would you just go?" And he goes, "Yeah."
But there's one moment in this when he says, ultimately, we see more of Keith's dreams than we do of Tim's. Think about that.
Well, exactly.
Think about that.
He wants to play music and be in a band.
Yeah, been there, done that. Got the T-shirt. Next.
Brent.
Yeah, he can't believe that someone else could be a musician in the office. He's a musician in the office.
Yeah. It's not dissimilar to obviously Rowan coming in and wanting to do the training, which is stealing David's limelight. Suddenly we've got Keith, of all people, trying to say, actually, I could be a musician. I want to be a musician. So he's damned if he's going to let him get away with that.
Well, yeah, and it's not. I mean, it's not even like Keith wants to be a musician.
Yeah,
he's just
it's the
just
throwaway
saying
comment.
In my ultimate fancy, we'd probably need to be a musician.
He wants to be a musician no more than Rowan wants his own island.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Brent's like, no, I'm not having
or
that.
Or Gareth wants some lesbians.
Yeah.
Just watching.
And this is where the lines between Gervais and his character really blur.
Yeah.
Because he's playing David Brent with all these unrealised musical ambitions, and now 10, 15 years later, here he is. Touring with Foregone Conclusion and making a film. So it's kind of Brentish.
Because obviously Ricky Gervais had unfulfilled musical ambitions as well.
Yeah. So yeah.
But so much of the David Brent myth is kind of created in this episode. But yeah, with the music, with the references to the band and stuff. But yeah, like you're right. It does carry on through the rest of the thing, and that all starts with this episode. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, yeah, I suppose you could when you think about it, Brent has no backstory really. And you're given a tiny bit of a backstory that used to be in a band, and it's about as much as you get, really.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, you don't know where the band started.
We don't know who he is.
He opens himself up to all the questions from all the staff. What did you play in the band? Were you successful?
He goes, I'll let
you do this after that.
That's it.
I was supported by a little known band called Texas. I find that perfect because I could actually imagine, it could have been Texas. That could have happened.
Yeah, Texas is the perfect reference.
A little local band could have been supported by Texas at one point.
He announces the name of the band as well.
I mean, Texas. I remember Texas a lot more now because of this episode than I otherwise would have.
That's the thing. Yeah, they've been immortalised in this episode. Yeah.
We go from him describing this to the next shot, which is I think of Rowan's face, just looking like absolute despair, arms crossed, leaning back, with the guitar music playing over the top and the camera pans across.
Strumming some quite competently finger picking some chords, and that made it all the more funny for me. The joke is not that he's a bad musician.
No, that wouldn't be funny.
He's a very proficient musician. That wouldn't have been funny.
Yeah, they're quite catchy, aren't they?
They're really good.
Yeah.
And obviously, as the camera pans,
the humour comes from this massive gulf between David Brent, the paper manager from Slough, and these songs he writes about cowboy studs and social issues.
Well, that's the thing. The songs are catchy and they got good melodies, but it's the lyrics that are just ridiculous.
Yeah,
which is ironic considering that he considers himself a lyrics man. Exactly.
As well.
Yeah, it's considering that he considers himself a lyrics man. It's funny that it's the lyrics that make
lyrics
the songs.
Man mania. Yeah.
It's the lyrics that make the song stupid.
Hot love on the hot love highway, ain't going home 'cause my baby's gone. She's not dead.
with Free Love Freeway, there's this great bit where Gareth starts joining in, singing about it, and it really spurs Brent on. You can tell he's playing it on his own, and then Gareth joins in, and then Tim joins in.
But Gareth doesn't just join in on his own accord, though. Don't forget, because actually, Brent's doing it, and this almost harks back to Tim and Dawn getting Gareth involved in their little gang, because as soon as Tim pats Gareth on the back, he springs into song. You know what I mean? And he starts doing his wonderful little harmony.
But then. Even though Brent's got his eyes closed and he's looking away and he's really like in his own mind, that spurs him on as well. His whole performance, and he starts
really going for
he's really going for it.
Probably what spurred him on.
It is what spurred him on. Yeah.
That's the moment with Malcolm's face that I was talking about, where you see Malcolm's face across the room. It's exactly where Brent's closing his eyes and he's so impassioned by this performance.
Yeah.
And then it just cuts across to a few people have got kind of surprised looks on their faces, almost like, oh, he's quite good, and Keith's kind of like clapping along in that brilliantly sort of
monotone,
slow way he does. And then Malcolm's just looking like, what is he doing? I love that scene.
But I was going to say, actually,
look it up.
Especially with Gareth singing backing.
Look it up when you get home.
It actually sounds pretty good, doesn't it? It doesn't.
And when Tim comes in as well, does
Gareth's improvised backing vocals fits it perfectly.
Yeah, and when Tim comes in and does the high notes.
And then Tim joins in ironically towards the end. So like Gareth's really into it. Tim's doing it ironically.
No, I think
Brent's just completely lost in the moment.
And of course, there's
two classic quotes.
Gareth goes, "She's dead." He goes, "She's not dead." And then there's the bit with Tim as well, where he says about her looking gay.
It's not gay. And then as soon as he says it's not gay, perfect timing. Yeah, he's straight back into it.
Yeah, he sounds a bit gay at the moment.
It's not gay.
No.
Free love on the Free Love Freeway.
No matter how much he's into the song,
he can't have it.
Nothing's going to stop him from just taking a little break, just to specify his genius song, how it has to go. He's got it in his mind so much. He knows how he wants people to react to it. He's been thinking about it for years since he wrote it.
As soon as that song finishes and there's that lovely sort of "she's gone," we got like Rowan, who's just an absolute picture, whose hands like folded, leaning back, his chin is practically on his nipples, and he's just like, right, that's lunch. And Vincent Franklin, hats off, man. As a one-off character, I can't think of a better single character, by the way, in the office.
Maybe not actually, just one-off.
One-off character. But yeah, no, big props to Vincent on that one. Honestly, fantastic.
Well, as you may or may not know, doing a podcast is a labour of love. We don't get paid for this. So here is a word from one of our sponsors who makes all this possible for you wonderful people.
Chasers! Come on down to Chasers at Slough Court on Wednesday nights, where it's hooch for £1 and Wonder Bras get in free. Or perhaps you drink lager or sometimes cider. Pints of Heineken or Strongbow for only $1.99. Different drinks for different needs. The party goes on all through the night with the DJ playing a selection of Clubland classics till 3 a.m. Chasers!
So they're on their break for lunch, and obviously Tim and Dawn are having a little laugh about David Brent doing his guitar, because obviously they're a bit like, why is this suddenly derailed our training session? What in the name of jumping Jehoshaphat was that? And obviously Dawn's starting to feel a little bit better, because obviously this stuff with David has probably cheered her up and taken her mind off of things.
Yeah, so Tim raises her up, but then what follows is a series of scenes where other people try and cheer her up, because obviously Dawn and Lee's argument, especially since she stormed back into the meeting room having to go calling back to Lee, don't call my mum again. Yeah, it's obviously now the talk of the office. Absolutely, it's completely derailed Rowan's training day probably as much as Brent has. So so Tim makes her feel better again, and then what follows is a series of scenes where other people are trying to talk to her, but they just don't quite have the same impact as
Tim's trying his best, and he's fighting against the current, isn't he? Because everybody else is trying to pull her down.
So then we've got Donna appearing again and trying to talk to her and trying to cheer her up.
What does she say?
She says, now that you've broken up, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. And Dawn treats it all deeply, like, I want to go travelling, and she just goes, oh no, I meant shagging. Which tells you a lot. Which frankly tells you a lot about Donna, really.
Which also, I think, backs up my point that I made in episode 2 about how Donna has nothing interesting to say about herself. I think Gervais and Merchant are kind of on that side as well.
To be fair, we have had an email in, so we do need to correct us. We have had an email about this, so we do need to correct something on Donna, because obviously we talked about her as though she was coming in for a full-time job, when actually she's only there for work experience.
Yeah.
So
And the title of the episode was work experience.
Retract that bit, particularly.
I think we need to offer a sincere and frank apology for that.
To Donna,
yeah, like when supermarkets do recalls, we'll recall that.
It's like a recall. Yeah,
we'll recall that, and Donna can get back to her shagging.
Yeah, exactly. We know what Ricky sees in her.
Yeah, but then so that this kind of builds to then Dawn revealing to everyone. Everyone's gathered around, and Dawn and trying to make her feel better, trying to talk to her about how she can do what she wants now. She can start again now that she's broken up with Lee. And Dawn reveals that she's actually thinking of leaving Wernham Blogg, which is.
I mean, that's tectonic for Tim. He's absolutely stunned by that, and obviously Gareth's response is hilarious as well, because Gareth is. I mean, this probably hit the mentality of the 90s as well. You've got a job here for life.
Yeah.
That's so not the case anymore. People have so many career changes these days. No one will even go into a paper merchant, even considering that might be their job for life. But what is it, Jeff Lamp? He's got his own Porsche. That's from paper.
Actually, I don't want to spend my life answering phones in some crappy sub-branch paper merchant.
Dawn, work hard. You could be answering those phones in head office, or a better paper merchant.
This is a great example of Merchant and Gervais getting the theme across with comedy, because obviously the lines that Gareth's saying, he's getting some good some funny lines in there, but it kind of really nails on the theme of there's two kinds of people. There's people that are happy to just float through life and just kind of get on with it and live to work, like Gareth, like Brent, and then there's people that kind of see that they've got an opportunity to do something better with their lives, which is.
But no, you're right. I totally agree.
But which Dawn is now seeing, and which, because of Dawn seeing it, that makes Tim realise it as well. Because as much as Tim complains about the job, you get the impression that he wouldn't really do anything about it. It requires Dawn to suggest it first about herself.
Yeah.
To really get this to light a candle up Tim.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, he's only roused by his apathy, by what others are doing. He can't really do it under his own steam.
Well, specifically Dawn. Yeah.
Yeah, and it got me thinking there when we were talking about the argument that Lee and Dawn were having. Perhaps that argument is because Dawn is thinking about leaving Wernham Blogg.
Yeah,
as she's expressed.
Yeah, that's really true.
Exactly.
This isn't really what I want to do. But he's going, no, we need stability.
Well, it goes against Lee's big plans for them, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, she might not want to be a cleaner.
Kids. Yeah. Get a cleaning job.
Get a part-time cleaning job.
But it's interesting. It does speak to everybody's stunted ambition in this office, where nobody really is capable of doing anything on their own. I mean, it makes you wonder if Tim and Dawn were at this point to break away and do their own thing, would they be successful, or would they just find another paper merchants?
Yeah,
mate. I think they're still quite apathetic characters, though. I don't like we said a few times, they're not heroes. They're unmotivated. They're lethargic in their lives.
Well,
maybe.
I mean, apathetic, is it?
I think you've done that before.
You've definitely done that one.
But that's what's interesting about it, because in the American office, for example, right, you have no doubt that Jim, if he was to leave, what's it called? What's the office called? If he was to leave Dunder Mifflin, he would do something with his life. He would start his own company.
He would do
But we're sitting here wondering if Tim would even bother doing that.
Yeah, no, it's true.
When he leaves Wernham Blogg, is he going to bother doing that?
Power,
yeah, which is interesting.
Tim is a bit of a cop-out.
And that's not a slight at all. That's an interesting character thing.
And we're about to see that in the next few episodes.
Well, you find a preoccupation with someone, another Gareth, if you found another office.
Yeah, because he's ostensibly our hero in this series, but we're sitting here and the thing's finished, and we know how it ends for him, and we're wondering is he just gonna stick around at the office? I don't know.
Come back in 10 years if you're married with kids.
Yeah.
So obviously Tim's been trying like hell to try and cheer up Dawn. This whole episode he keeps trying, whether it's stirring up David or just having a conversation in private. And all of his efforts are basically in vain, because the next scene is David and Gareth taking Dawn into the office. Gareth behind David, as David's got the guitar out and thinks this will cheer her up.
Another classic song.
Absolutely, another classic song.
So originally about Princess Diana.
I love the way Dawn's eyes open. Have you noticed that her eyes just open when she sees he's picking up the guitar? Oh God,
Who would get away with writing that without it being like a Daily Mail outlet?
It was only 4 years after she died.
Yeah, exactly.
as well.
Remember at the time, the memory of Princess Diana's death was still very...
Yeah. 4 years wasn't that long. It isn't that long.
I'm not entirely convinced.
But if you read the Daily Mail, it still is.
And yeah, but Ricky Gervais, funny enough, when he played at the Diana Memorial concert, he chose not to play that song.
I mean, like we had in the last episode, an absolutely special shout out here to Gareth's face while he's playing this song, because he's got this sort of pursed lips, closed eyes, nodding head to the side. It's just absolutely superb. Like he thinks David is John Lennon.
And also, is this the first? Speaking of pursed lips, is this the first instance of the Brent underbite?
Yes,
I think it might.
It is.
I don't remember seeing it in the. So that classic facial gesture that everyone does now to do an impression of David Brent, or even if they're not doing an impression of David Brent, they just do it in live.
Well, as Danny's doing right now. I mean, I don't know if anybody knows Danny, but if you are friends with Danny on Facebook, if you look at any of his pictures, he's doing this bunch signal with his fingers, and he's doing this little Brent face that he's doing right now.
Bottom lip. It's kind of like it's a bite of a kind of smugness, isn't it? Like just kind of it's
not
kind
sexual.
Nothing sexual. Yeah,
which is and I think this singing this song, I think it might actually be the first instance of that.
Yeah, definitely.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's it.
Another classic office moment from this episode.
So then we've obviously he brings them all back. We've got another shot of the monotonous corridor with the long mile back to the training room, and they're all back sat in the training room, and we've got a shot of through the window, right, of Lee and Dawn.
So while all of this is going on, obviously the Lee and Dawn situation is still going on, and it looks like they're making up, doesn't it?
So this is a twist in the tale.
Yeah, it's been resolved. Yeah,
because it's only been resolved for Lee and Dawn. So Lee, Dawn, and the camera, and us, the audience, are the only people that know this has been resolved.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tim doesn't know, which obviously comes.
Everyone else in the room still assumes that they split up.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
most importantly, Tim. So obviously, then we go back to the office. To the training room again, and there's that next shot of the. Is it two dogs with a lead in between them, pulling in different directions?
This is where Rowan's patience finally starts.
This is what's great about this scene. Yeah, Rowan's just not having.
You can see he's had enough. Yeah.
So what's the dialogue here? What happens?
It's not the worst thing that's happened all day, but it's just like the small blow finish. It's just like it's all too much now.
It's the straw that broke the camel's back.
It's the straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah.
And it's literally because this is the prime example of just Brent just talking to talk. Gareth says some bullshit about what he thinks the two dog means. Tim gets fed up with it and tells him what it means, and then that's over though. Gareth doesn't kind of over-egg it though. He's like, right, okay, and Rowan's like, okay, we've got past that now. And then Brent just can't let anyone else have the last word, so he's got to go. Oh, it's a bit like that fable,
You know the one where the dog's got a bone, and he goes down to the lake to get a drink, and he sees his reflection, and he goes, oh, that dog's got a better bone than mine. I think I'll have his as well. And when he opens his mouth to get the bone that's a reflection, he drops the real bone, and he loses both.
And what's that got to do with this?
One of the funniest things like the whole thing. Don't you know?
Don't you know?
The only connection is that it involves dogs. That's
and it's just all it's got to do with
it's
got nothing to do with it. He didn't need to bring it up. He's just rambling, but he needs to be the one that has the final line.
Yeah.
And he obviously thinks before he says it, he's like, oh, I've got something that's relative, that's slightly connected to this. And he's like, right, I'm just going to open my mouth and start it, and I'm sure I'll be able to make a connection as I'm talking, and he can't.
And then cement it with, don't you know? As if Rowan's going to be like, oh, well, maybe I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe this guy is wiser than my years.
It's not only the straw that breaks Rowan's back, but also Tim he's like, right, I'm not having this. And there's this dramatic irony of the fact that, like you said, we've seen that Lee and Dawn are back together, but Tim hasn't. And so he's now spurred on by what he thinks Dawn is doing, which is going to break up with Lee and leave Wernham Hogg. He wants to do the same thing, and we just know, as he's saying it, we just know, no. But, I mean...
Well, and Tim's just in the window of opportunity for that silver lining moment. Like you were saying earlier, he wanted to just fuck off Wernham Hogg, grab... Dawn and just ride off into the sunset.
Exactly,
together.
yeah.
And it's so out of character for him, and it's like it's the one time he's roused from his apathy.
Yeah, exactly. There's adrenaline.
Say what he feels.
Yeah, he's
pumped with adrenaline.
It's so horrible, like you say, that dramatic irony that we already know that they've made that up. Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I mean, even if Lee and Dawn are back together, it's good that he's been he's been kind of roused. Like you said, roused from his apathy, and he finally shows some agency and drive. And he goes and he says he's quitting. He says he's going to hand in his notice. He's going to do anything else than this. And finally, he's showing some kind of gumption.
Yeah.
And then last minute, he comes back in and he says to Dawn, "Oh, now that you and Lee have broken up, do you want to come out for a drink with me?"
Yeah.
And then Dawn has to reveal to him,
I haven't broken
up with him, and just so yeah.
I meant as a friend, but he obviously
that's
didn't.
so
He
painful.
obviously
Yeah,
didn't
and
mean
it's
as a
just-
friend, did he? Because he
Obviously
said
not.
now you split up with Lee, making it
Yeah,
clear
and
that
this
he's
is-
not
I like
a friend.
Columbo. Yeah, we know that. Yeah, he
this is-
definitely didn't mean it as a friend.
And this is the one
He embarrassed
awkward.
himself there.
This is the one awkward cringe moment where it's not played for laughs. And the shame is that the lesson, but if you're Tim, the lesson you're going to take from Matt is, and it's a lesson that most of us dread and most of us also kind of silently live by as well. It's like, just don't bother trying, because the worst could happen, and for Tim the worst does happen, and it's just it's such a shame.
Well, we talked about it before. I mean, we talked about it even before about the unspoken stuff that you don't. And this is a British show. Let's not forget, this is British culture. We don't do this sort of thing in England, right? So actually, for him to do that, this is the equivalent of like an action scene in America.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
yeah.
This is like the end of the high school film with the prom scene where the music stops, the bully gets punched, the guy gets the girl. That's this.
Yeah,
but it's the British equivalent, and it's softer, it's more reserved, and yet it has this horrible outcome where our toes are curling while watching it.
And this is the thing, is that
It has a harder impact.
Yeah.
Oh,
before
says the bishop.
For God's sake! All right, come on.
But before that, you could be forgiven for thinking, right, this is going to be it. He's going to come and he storms back in. It's like, it's the classic Richard Curtis kind of like final scene where he storms back in and he finally asks her out. And prior to that, there's actually a shot from outside the building of a window of a plane soaring across the a reflection of a plane across the window, and the symbolism is obvious. Like, right, this is Tim's chance to soar.
Him by.
I've got to be honest.
But this is Tim's.
That's a new one to me. That I had not noticed that.
No, I know, but this time I noticed it straight away. And I was like, yeah, this is it's obvious what Gervais and Merchant are going for, but it's just this is Tim's chance to
arranged for planes
soar.
to be flying past at that exact
I'm not saying they arranged for it.
No,
but if they saw it, they were like, right, quickly get that.
It's interesting you say that, because I took from that, and I did notice that, but I didn't think of it as this is your opportunity. I thought of it as opportunity passing you by, like the departure's happened and you've missed the plane.
Oh, well, I mean, it could be both.
Maybe they just, Slough's quite near Heathrow. Maybe there just happens to be a plane.
Yeah, but the reason
I do think it's probably an accident that you're reading into.
I don't think it is an accident. It's not an accident, but you.
I've worked in Slough, and there's literally planes flying past. It's near Heathrow.
Danny, think about what goes into making. It's not an accident, but they went outside, filmed outside, got the cameras, aimed it up at that window. They obviously knew that's where
and then
planes
kept it in as well.
Having been involved slightly in the film industry, I can guarantee you they had to get a separate camera crew to get out there, because someone had noticed that there was planes reflected on that window every hour or something. So they said, someone go out there and just wait and get a shot of a plane because we want to drop that in. There's so much.
But even if it was an accident and they caught it on camera, they kept it into the final
exactly. Yeah, it's not.
So it doesn't matter. Really.
There's so much machinery that goes into finishing a completed television.
Also,
series.
it doesn't matter. If, we will find out one day, maybe, or we'll ask them. Maybe.
I really think you might be reading stuff in there.
Honestly, I don't think so.
No.
It's such a
what's that got to do with this?
Yeah, what's that got to do with this?
Me and Jack All right.
But yeah, it's just such a shame that Tim now has learnt the lesson that don't bother trying that, and like I said, it's a lesson that most people do live by. Like, don't put yourself out there, don't bother trying. You'll only, if the worst that can happen probably will happen. So I'm just not going to bother.
How depressing.
Well,
life is depressing.
Yeah. Rowan also storms out at this point. He's a bloody waste of time.
Yeah,
absolute waste of time. Brent has finally broken. Rowan. Like we said, it's in his head. It's kind of almost like
I faced you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, since then, it's been a game for the whole time, and it's just made really obvious here. And then Brent says.
So obviously Brent. Yeah. So Rowan's walked out, silence among the troops. We get that shot of sort of behind Brent, I think, and the rest of them are just sat in a big semicircle looking at him. And he leans over to Gareth and says,
"Go and get the guitar."
Yeah.
And then we've got a lovely little cover of Handbags and Glad Rags by Ricky Gervais.
Yeah. So and there we go, a classic, the greatest episode of The Office, probably one of the greatest sitcom episodes ever, is finished.
Having talked it through, discussed it, I genuinely agree with its placement as well as the best episode. It is just.
It's almost too much to talk about and take in, isn't it? There's so many great. You could do a 4-hour podcast.
Yeah.
Talking about all the great quotes.
I think
I've been here for the best part.
Talking about every individual great quote and like your memories of using it. Or
analyse every word.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing.
No apologies necessary. Let's get on with the quiz.
Danny was saying to me before, right, that he really struggled to think of quiz questions for this episode, right? So let me just say, Seth and Dak, if I was to say to you now to come up with a 2-word answer to one of the questions that you think is going to come up. I got it in one, and I bet one of you at least will get it.
Daley Thompson.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said.
There's not much point in me including this question in the quiz now, really.
No, there's definitely not.
We've already guessed.
So, we've already guessed one of the answers. Daley Thompson, who will Gareth want to be stuck on Dead Island. So I'm not going to ask that. So it's going to be 7 questions. So, without further ado, can I hear everyone's buzzers? James.
Hang on.
Oh, do you know?
That'll do.
Jack.
Get their attention.
And Seth.
I'm not sure how I feel about having this buzzer.
Seth's is well loud. Hang on.
Okay.
Can we turn ours up? All right, whatever. Let's just go with it.
Question number 1. Where did Rowan get his MBA?
Oh, do you know?
This is a brilliant buzzer.
Don't you know, James?
This is a brilliant buzzer for this.
Where?
Bradford.
Bradford University.
I never would have got that. That was a good pull there, James.
Okay. Question number 2. What is the name of the company where the customer won't be bothering her again ever in the Who Cares Wins advert called? What's that company called that travel agent works for?
Oh, fucking hell, man. That's mental.
That
question.
is a hard one. Hold on.
I think that's hard, yeah.
As your boyfriend said.
Did they actually say it, or is it just written down?
No, it's written down on her
Yeah,
case.
that's mental.
No one's going to get it.
On her case?
Have I actually stumped everyone on
Oh,
the train?
Jesus Christ. If it's only written down on her case, no.
It's written down on the table where she sat.
I'm never going to get it.
It's Travel and Go.
No.
Travel and Go. That's a
Yes.
mental question.
Number 3.
If anybody got that,
That's a really hard one.
get out.
If anyone got that, identify yourself on the Facebook
Yeah,
page.
please.
Number 3.
I bet Ed will get it.
At what age did Jeff Lamb get his first Porsche? At what age is he now?
42.
with his first? I heard the rate first.
Yeah, rape was...
Yeah, 42.
Seth's
42, yeah.
Seth's the
42.
Seth's
okay,
Seth's the
42.
rape.
It's 42.
I'm not sure how I feel
the rate
Just like Finchy had his IQ of 142, so
Okay, fair
that's the magic number.
You keeping score, Danny?
Yes, yeah.
All right.
Question number 4. Okay, that was Dave Thompson. We know that. Question number 4. What is Brent referencing when he recites the anecdote about the dog
Get their attention.
making Tim and Rowan snap? Get their attention.
Aesop's Fables.
Aesop's Fable. What's the fable called?
The Dog and the Bone. The Fable of the Dog and the Bone.
No, that's wrong. Does anyone else want to have a go?
No, I don't know.
Does anyone else know?
Does he actually say what the fable is?
This is
No,
mental.
this is assumed knowledge.
The Fable of the Dog and the Water.
No, it's the dog and its reflection.
Oh,
Once
Jesus.
again, no one gets it. I've actually obviously made this hard enough, haven't I?
You've made it way too hard, man.
Question
That isn't
number
even
5.
a-
Question number
It's
5.
not even
Okay.
a question about the other.
This is a 2-point question. Okay. I want 4 things. You'll get 1 point for. You'll get 1 point if you get 2 or 3. You'll get 2 points if you get all 4.
Right.
Okay. What 4 colours does the spaceman list as possible racial classifications?
Do you know?
Don't you know, James? James got there first, I'm afraid. What is it, James?
Yellow, brown, black, or white.
Yeah.
Yellow, brown, black, or white. Yes. That's 2 points to James.
4 points for that, though.
2
Yeah.
points.
2, only 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That was so obvious. Okay, anyway, go on.
Question number 7. Who does the lady at the optician's mistake Peter Purvis for? Get their
John
attention.
Notes.
I heard get their attention first. That's
John
you.
Notes.
I thought it was mine first.
Yeah, you're the rape Seth, remember?
Yeah. I heard get their attention first.
Oh, well, there you
Okay.
go.
Question
Yeah,
number
John
8.
Notes.
Oh, hang on, there's another one as well.
This is a 2-pointer.
Oh shit, hold on, give me.
So if either Jack or Seth gets this, we'll be in a sudden death tiebreak situation.
God, alright, better pull
But
me.
if it's James, then James wins. Statistics show if you're treated well, you'll tell how many people, and how many will you tell if you're treated badly? 1 point for each.
Oh,
What?
do you know?
Yep. If you're
5 and 9.
yes. If you're treated well,
Oh,
you'll tell 5 people. If
I-
you're treated badly, you'll tell 9. So James is the
I
outright
don't know
winner
what
of
to
this
say to
week.
that.
That was awesome. I think that's deserved. I don't know where
Fair
in the
enough.
bowels of my brain
That was
that's
a
been kept.
very, very easy win for James. It's kept in mind. Do you know what? Because I've worked in customer services, and I will always recite that to sound like I know what I'm talking about. Based on the office. Based on factors.
Yeah, I don't know where.
So it's a win for James
Based on-
this week.
Fantastic.
So episode 4,
Good hustle.
James after 4 quizzes, James has won 2, right?
2-1, yeah,
And then
2.
Seth
So
and Leah
James
both got
2.
1 each.
Seth, yeah.
I'd be genuinely interested to know if anybody got those other 2 questions, because that was mental.
Yeah.
The one about
Yeah, they were hard. Yeah.
the one about the travel agent, Danny.
If you got Travel and Go, whatever it was called, identify yourself on the page.
Yeah, that's
Then
mental.
please identify yourself.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to mine obscurity from a very famous episode. So possibly I
succeeded. Massively succeeded. Yeah,
the dog in his reflection. It could have been anything.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our 4th episode. I can't believe we've done 4 so far. This is going so fast.
Yeah, we've done 4. Yeah,
4 episodes.
So we're now over halfway.
Nearly done a whole season.
Yeah,
we're almost done a whole
we only got 2 episodes left of the first series.
Yeah, so we've been releasing them weekly so far, but we do need to point out that we've got a few commitments between us over the next week or so, so we are going to have to take a very short break.
Yeah.
So this episode, the episode 4, is going to be released on the 14th of September. We're going to take a week's break and release nothing on the 21st, and then we're going to release the episode 5 on the 28th of September, followed by the final episode of the series on the 5th of October.
Yeah, so and then we'll obviously carry on after that, but that's just so for future reference. So that gives you guys a week 2 weeks in fact to recover from the great training episode and to encourage your friends and other people, friends, family to listen, and review it and subscribe and rate.
Like disciples.
Yeah, like disciples. Yeah, you guys have now got 2 weeks to get us some more followers.
You don't just listen to the podcast and say, "Oh, I've listened to it once on podcast on what's it called, Podbean." Yeah, I'll tell people I'm the Son of God. No, you've got to go. You've got to spread the word. You've got to go to your other office groups, your other office friends, and this is no going nowhere.
You've got to go to Castbox, please.
Yeah.
Is it Castbox? I don't even know what these apps are.
So again,
I've heard of them before.
If you might not have heard, I mean, did we mention it in the episode already that we're going to the top 10? Fuck it, let's mention it again. We're going to the top 10 on iTunes.
Yep.
So we would quite like to be back there because it was quite comfortable for a few days when we were there.
It was nice to be in the top 10.
Number 7, in fact.
Yeah, number 7. Yeah, absolutely.
Was our high point.
Did we crawl all the way up to number 7?
Yeah, we did. So we were at number
7. Very briefly, but the chart seems to be a very fickle game, so we dropped out again quite quickly.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can get us right back up.
Where are we now? Can you check now?
We're a bit of an underdog, aren't we? We've only we're a very independent podcast, and we've only got 3 episodes under our belt. So
no underdog podcast.
Whereas India,
however,
you see, it just left.
So we want to keep climbing up these charts, and obviously you guys can all help us at home. So I know it's a bit cheesy, and I know that every time you listen to a podcast, people say, "Oh, could you rate, review, subscribe?" But what we're actually we genuinely want you to rate, review, subscribe. So fuck these other ones that say rate, review, subscribe, and rate, review, subscribe with us, and we can get back up there in the charts and keep bringing you more episodes. I guess. Well, we'll keep bringing them anyway, but it'll still be nice.
Yeah, it's nice to know. It's nice to know we're not doing all of this and talking to no one.
Yeah, well,
it spurs us on.
It does. Yeah.
When we see ourselves up that podcast chart, you can see us literally getting all motivated.
So okay. So what else do we need to say at the end of a podcast?
Thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you all for listening, everybody.
Thanks everyone. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
If you've heard a good podcast, you'll tell 5 people. If you've heard a bad one, you'll tell 9.
Boring, isn't it?
Fans with little testicles.
Not for me. I like it.
Women are dirty, and I'm boring myself talking about it.